Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me in the conference room?
Yes.
Cool. I'm trying a new computer tonight, so we'll see how this works out. Let me adjust the volume here so I can hear you all better. All right, I think I have everything set. So it's 6 o'clock. Welcome. Tonight we are meeting as the School Board of the City of Manassas on Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 for a special meeting. The meeting is going to be conducted virtually as authorized by Virginia Code Section 2.2-37082A3 due to restrictions on public gatherings issued by the state and federal government. We're going to start off, I call the meeting to order. We're going to start off with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll have a moment of silence now. Now will be followed by the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. We'll start off with the roll call. May I have a roll call, please, Ms. Garza? I can't hear anything from the conference room.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I heard that. We are getting a lot of feedback, though.
Let me start. Chairman Williams,
Here.
Chairwoman Kiefer,
Here.
Maria,
Here.
Albrecht,
Here with my friend Bullwinkle.
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mrs. Stevens,
Here.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Sir, I move that Scott.
No, go, Tim, go.
I move that the School Board of the City of Manassas approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Demaria, second by Mr. Albrecht, that the School Board of the City of Manassas approve the consent agenda as presented. Because this is a virtual meeting, we must have a roll call vote. So Ms. Garza, may you please do the honors of a roll call vote, please, on this motion.
Sir, can I have some discussion first?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. I have two related people on the consent agenda for the 2021 school year, my wife and my daughter, and in no way do either one of them being employed by us have an influence on my vote in this or any other vote. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Demaria. Mr. Albrecht?
I actually didn't read it because for those who don't know, my wife has submitted her retirement paperwork.
Sorry to hear that and happy to hear that at the same time. Happy for both of you.
Thanks.
So, thanks, Mr. Demaria, for that information. So back to the agenda on the table, sorry, the motion on the table. Mrs. Garza, may you take a roll call vote for the motion, please?
Chairman Williams,
Aye.
Chairwoman Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Demaria,
Aye.
Albrecht,
Aye.
Mrs. Seaver,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Stevens,
Aye.
Thank you very much. The motion passes 7-0. Next up on the agenda is the discussion agenda. The first item on the discussion agenda is student achievement, K-12 English Language Arts resource adoption. Dr. Krantz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chairman Williams, Vice Chairwoman Kiefer, Dr. Newman, and other members of the board. I am super excited to be with you this evening, along with Heather James, our English Language Arts Specialist for pre-K through 12, to present to you both the process and recommendations for our new English Language Arts resources. Heather and our teacher committees have been working diligently over the past year to take us through this entire process. It requires a lot of hours and a lot of manpower, and I am grateful to both the teachers and Heather for their participation throughout this process. You know, I obviously supervise Heather and can provide her guidance and answers to questions, but she and the team really do the legwork, and I am just here for support. We are excited about the resources that we are bringing forth this evening and the potential that they have for our students, our teachers, and achievement in reading and writing across the division. So at this time, I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. James, and she will take the presentation from here. So Heather James, our English Language Arts K-12 specialist.
Thank you, Dr. Krantz. Alba, if you don't mind clicking to the next slide. I don't know how you would prefer that I ask you to go on. Good evening, Chairman Williams, Vice Chairwoman Kiefer, Dr. Newman, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to share the English Language Arts resource adoption process and recommendations. At the end of last year, I set out to lead the resource adoption process in such a way that would create a sense of excitement and instructional possibilities. Resource adoption is the perfect time to empower our teachers to direct paradigm shifts that promote exceptional instructional experiences for our students. My primary goal was to end up with outstanding resources, having determined recommendations based on data provided by the teachers who know our students best. Having been a teacher and coach at Weems Elementary for 10 years, I understand firsthand the importance of transparency and teacher support for this process. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a nice snapshot of this year's resource adoption process. I'll wait a moment so you can read through our process at a glance. Next slide, please. The first step was to form a resource adoption committee. In June 2019, staff members were invited to join the committee via email. I asked those interested to complete a Google form explaining why they wanted to be part of the process to gather information on committee perspectives entering the 1920 adoption process. The 48 responses I received indicated a collective passion for finding high-quality resources. Our K-6 committee had teacher and coach representatives from all schools, as well as multiple grade levels within the school, including a special education and immersion representation. Next slide, please. Our 7-12 committee had teacher representatives from both schools, as well as multiple grade levels within the school, including special education representation. Next slide, please. Division level leadership played an integral role in supporting the English Language Arts resource adoption process. This process has run smoothly because of their contributions and guidance. I'm grateful for the time they have spent ensuring each phase of the process was seamless. Next slide, please. To help the process remain organized throughout the year, Schoology was used for consistent communication and committee access to necessary materials such as rubrics and schedules. Next slide. In September, committee members were presented with a rubric I created, having utilized the state rubric, exemplars from other divisions, and research into the best practices in ELA instruction. The rubric contained 7 sections, including evaluator information, such as name, school, and grade level, English Language Arts content, program goals, assessment, equity, teacher support, and an overall section asking teachers to select their overall level of support for each resource and providing space to list potential vendor questions. Committee members were asked to examine the rubric and provide feedback, including additions, deletions, and/or edits. Committee members made 2 requests. Under the equity section, they requested one question be broken into 2 separate questions, reflecting both the incorporation of diversity and freedom from bias. They also requested that a technology question be revised to reflect that technology is an option to support instruction, but not required to successfully complete lessons. Both requests were honored. Next slide, please. Over the course of 1 month, committee members scheduled times to come to central office and evaluate the products listed in this slide. Committee members were asked to complete evaluations of all products available to their assigned grade level or make the decision not to move forward with committee work. This step was necessary in order to gather comparative data by grade level and grade band. Next slide, please. With the help of Mr. Pedro Hernandez, I was able to disaggregate rubric data by grade level and by school, meaning K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, as well as in broader groups such as K6 and 7, 12. I looked for natural breaks in the data indicating top-ranked products. In November, I presented data to committee members along with the overall level of support for each of the top products. Committee members then agreed upon which vendors to invite for question and answer sessions. Committee members also worked together to finalize a list of vendor questions. In January, invitations were sent to the top-ranked vendors, which included scheduling information, committee questions, and initial RFP documentation prepared by Ms. Gwen Bruner. Resources were also available for additional staff, parent, and committee input for 3 weeks in January. I made the decision to house resources for public input at central office for equity reasons. There were a significant number of products to review, not enough samples to go to each school, and each sample included many pieces. It was important that reviewers have access to intact products and the opportunity to ask questions if necessary. We received input from 18 teachers and 1 administrator during this window. The primary points of feedback included a need for materials that include assessments, extensive online materials, texts that are visually stimulating, culturally relevant, with a wide range of text levels, teacher support, flexibility, options for print materials as needed, and opportunities for differentiation for ESOL students in particular. Although we did not have ESOL representation on the committee, 2 ESOL teachers provided invaluable feedback during the public input window that helped guide what to look for during vendor Q&As. Committee members were cognizant throughout the whole process to identify resources that meet L needs. Next slide, please. In February, we hosted vendor question and answer sessions at central office. Vendors tailored their presentations to committee questions, adding any key product information they felt was important for the committee to be aware of, while leaving time for follow-up questions that may have arisen during their presentations. Next slide, please. At the conclusion of each Q&A presentation, committee members were asked to complete brief rubrics, including positives and challenges of the resource, as well as their overall level of support for the resource. Overall levels of support included strongly support the resource, can support the resource, and do not support the resource. Like the first round of evaluations, I asked committee members to attend all vendor sessions. I felt it was important for committee members to have an equal understanding of all products in order to participate in final recommendations. I would like to reiterate that 29 K through 6 and 8 7 through 12 teachers participated all the way through this rigorous process. Their passion and commitment to our students was truly profound. Next slide, please. After the vendor question and answer sessions, committee members met to review Q&A rubric data and agree upon resource recommendations. Rubrics completed during the vendor Q&A provided clear front runners based on the overall level of product support, positives, and challenges. Based on the rubric data and considering public input concerns, a data-driven product recommendation was made. For both the K6 and 7-12 committees, the product recommendations were for the product receiving the strongest overall level of support from committee members. These recommendations also best address the concerns put forth during public input, such as ESOL support, differentiation options, flexibility, a wide range of culturally relevant texts, and a hope that Mayfield and Baldwin intermediate schools would have one program building-wide as opposed to one product for 5th and a separate product for 6th. I reviewed all of the data with committee members and asked each to complete an anonymous Google form indicating whether or not they would recommend these top products based on their rubric data. Next slide, please. When all votes were cast, 83% of the K-6 committee members voted to move forward with scholastic literacy, and 100% of 7 through 12 committee members voted to move forward with StudySync ELA. I would like to note that I did not vote at any point along the way. I did not complete initial evaluations, nor did I complete rubrics during vendor Q&As. All data points come from committee votes and align with the needs outlined during public input window. Once recommendations were determined, committee members were asked to work together in table groups to list potential questions that would need to be considered for a smooth implementation of the recommended resources. Because the recommendation vote was anonymous, I returned to the original evaluation data and touched base with those who did not support Scholastic after the first round of evaluations. The primary concern were the need for Spanish immersion materials and the desire to have leveled text in the classroom rather than a shared book room. I shared that division-wide, our students within any given grade level are reading at wider ranges than a single grade level classroom set of text can provide, and the only way to access appropriate text is to have a shared book room. The book room was also a major selling point for those in support of the program. To address immersion concerns, I have worked closely with Mrs. Brooks and her team to ensure that adequate immersion resources are available to start the year. Next slide, please. Under normal circumstances, committee members would have had the opportunity to present resource recommendations to colleagues through a PLC or staff meeting. At the time of the COVID-19 school closure, committee members had not yet presented to their teams. I made the decision to share the resource adoption process and recommendations through Google. I presented a high-level overview of the process, the committee recommendations, and highlights of each selection. Schools were offered the option to view the presentation as individuals or in teams. A Google form link was embedded at the end of the presentation. All general education, special education, and ESOL English Language Arts teachers were asked to respond individually. At the end of the form, teachers were given the space to share any questions or comments related to the recommendations and/or the adoption process. As of today, 187 staff members have responded to the form, accounting for the majority of ELA teachers. Comments and questions have been related to excitement about resources, when online access and teacher materials will be available, professional development, immersion resources, and how new resources will fit with our student learning maps and instructional framework. Next slide, please. This slide reflects the total cost of the K-6 Scholastic Literacy purchase. This purchase includes a new shared book room with a library-like digital catalog so teachers can search for text by level or skill, and reading and writing workbooks for each student. Each teacher will receive access to the Digital Teacher Hub, which houses all instructional materials, teacher's guides, and implementation guides. All teachers will have access to every grade level, K-6, which will support opportunities for differentiation. The Teacher Hub access updates automatically each year. Teachers will also receive print teacher manuals and implementation guides, an assessment kit to identify and monitor student reading levels, a 7-strength independent reading library addressing social emotional learning for students to utilize, as well as diverse, authentic read aloud texts, mentor texts, and anchor charts. There are also a significant number of additional components included in the Teacher Hub, such as handwriting and grammar materials. I have worked closely with Carrie Pendleton from the Special Education Department and the Hayden team to find best fit resources for our amazing self-contained special education and immersion teachers. The total cost for K-6 general education, self-contained special education, and immersion resources in year 1 is $907,633. Annual costs thereafter would be for material replacement or enrollment growth. In year 7, consumable and digital license renewal will cost $40 per student, K-4, and $31 per student, 5 through 6. This is a discounted rate. The decision to enter a 6-year contract with additional costs in year 7 was based on the need to adhere to the current budget without losing valuable pieces of the program. Next slide, please. This slide reflects the total cost of the 7 through 12 StudySync purchase. StudySync's digital access goes beyond an online textbook. It is an interactive platform that allows students to complete all assigned work and assessments online with the option to print materials if desired. This resource utilizes a digital license for all students and teachers. Because instructional materials are printable, the committee decided to go all digital and utilize school-based funds for copying when and if printing materials is necessary. I will revisit the functionality of this approach throughout the school year and will budget for student books if necessary next year. With digital licenses, teachers and students will have access to opportunities for student voice and choice through self-selected reading and writing, assessments, the ability for teachers to follow standards-based, locally written curriculum without losing resource functionality, various student scaffolds such as speaking and sentence frames, audio with variable speed and text highlights, L resources, and much more, as well as a library of over 2,000 and growing daily classic and contemporary texts ranging from 2nd to 12th grade reading levels, providing significant opportunities for differentiation. One important factor brought up by committee members and staff during public input was the need for diverse, culturally relevant text. StudySync ELA offered the largest quantity of available text and the strongest focus on representation of culturally and gender diverse authors and characters that will help our students see their stories in text. Since meeting with the academic committee last week, StudySync has dropped in price from $105 per student to $100 per student. The adjusted total cost for digital access in year one is $344,500. Annual cost thereafter would be based on replacement or enrollment growth. Next slide, please. The total cost of the K-12 English Language Arts resource adoption is $1,252,133. $1.2 million was budgeted for ELA resource adoption. To account for the $52,133 overage, I revisited the approved curriculum and instruction budget, and I'm going to remove the purchase of handwriting books to fund resource adoption. Handwriting books accounted for $53,000 of the curriculum and instruction budget for grades K through 4, but are no longer necessary because handwriting materials are embedded in scholastic literacy. Professional development to support implementation of both resources is also included in the total cost. Next slide, please. In the coming weeks, I plan to provide teachers with digital access for the summer, including access to pre-recorded webinars to help teachers navigate the sites. Continue work to connect the resource with curriculum maps and the division curriculum framework, and continue to work with Scholastic and StudySync to plan effective PD for the fall. Next slide, please. We are submitting our formal recommendations to the board this evening. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cramp, for the beginning, and Ms. James, excellent job. We really appreciate your thoroughness and what you've done. You guys obviously took a lot of time and spent a lot of energy doing this, and for the benefit of our students and our city ultimately. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that, may I have a motion, please?
Sir, I move that the school board of the city of Manassas waive second reading and approve the K-12 English Language Arts resource adoption as presented.
Second by Seberg.
Motion by Mr. Demaria, second by Ms. Seberg, that the school board of the city of Manassas waive second reading and approve the K-12 English Language Arts resource adoption as presented. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Albrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got probably 2 or 3 questions, and Alba, if you could go back to slide 16 as we start. My question has to do with the year 7 comment that we would have $31 to $40 per student, and what I'll assume are digital renewals. And my guess is they only offer a 6-year digital license.
I'm so sorry. My kids decided that moment to walk right in. So they do offer the option for a year 7, and that would include workbooks and digital access, any physical materials we would need to consider to continue with Scholastic. In working with Ms. Bruner from the finance department and Scholastic, we decided that it would be more cost effective to budget for those items in year 7 than to try and wrap it in at this point, because it did make the contract significantly larger in cost.
No, I get that. I guess my question is, and this is really kind of a key as we go to a digital software as a service or subscription-based environment. If we owned textbooks, they'd be our assets, and we could delay a future textbook adoption a year, and it wouldn't be a big issue. I think what I believe is the net impact of this is in year 7, we're kind of looking at a big, is that when we think the next adoption would be, about 6-7 years out?
Dr. Krimp, I don't know if you want to jump in. I believe it's every 7 years. The cost in that year 7 would be to keep digital access and to purchase student consumable books, but we would still have access to the physical teacher materials and items like that.
You are correct. It's every 7 years, according to the state schedule. And sometimes that happens a little later than 7 years if the state gets delayed, but it should be approximately every 7 years. And to address, I think, your question a little bit more, Mr. Albrecht, we budgeted a certain amount in order, in November for the resources. And when the items were selected, in order for us to get all the components that we felt like were crucial in order to be able to deliver the instruction completely with the new resource, we were able to afford the 6 years and not that 7th year, which is why we decided to go with the 6 years and maintain all the components rather than remove some of the components in order to get that 7th year. So instead, we made the decision that in year 7, we will, budget accordingly to be able to continue to utilize Scholastic in that 7th year as we begin to look at new resources, assuming the state remains on schedule.
Right. Thanks. Yeah, I think it just highlights the future risk, because that's probably $150,000, $170,000 sitting out in year 7. Okay. My other 2 questions are on slide 17. So I think I heard you say, Ms. James, there are no textbooks.
So the teachers will be receiving physical teachers manuals, but you're correct. There are not student textbooks. It is a digital platform.
And are we able to do that 7-12 because our one-to-one initiative works? It's proven, we know what's there, and we're not quite as refined, let's say, K-6 or what?
I would say half of your question, yes. Yes, I believe that the one-to-one initiative is working. That was a decision that I came to with the teachers on the committee. That was not a decision that I made separately. They felt that most of the reason why it was viable is because everything in the student consumable and in the student textbook is accessible online. And the company assured us that every item, whether it be a graphic organizer to a text, has the print option. So the teachers felt that from their previous resource, they had a significant amount of space taken up by the physical textbooks that they felt they didn't use, as well as student consumables that they felt were wasted. So as a group, they decided to go into year 1 as the print option, so that if they feel print is necessary, they can make that happen without having the additional waste of unused student consumables. But they were very comfortable making that decision based on the platform itself and the user friendliness of the platform for students, as well as that option for printing.
And my other question, the digital subscription cost per student, is that a one-time or an annual cost?
That is one time. That'll be just for year 1, and the only additional cost thereafter would be for enrollment growth if we had to purchase additional licenses.
So my question is, if you look at the number of students, this year we have 627th graders who ideally will all matriculate to the 8th grade.
Sure.
If I read this table correctly, we're only buying 577 8th grade licenses.
Correct. This is based on current enrollment.
So are we going to have a problem of 50 licenses in a year for the 8th grade?
Well, the way we typically budget when we have a new resource adoption is to budget on current numbers of students when we go into the initial subscription. And each year I work with specialists. We look at updated numbers. We look at the number of students rolling forward. And if we need to include funds in the curriculum and instruction budget to address exactly what you're saying, a larger group of students joining a particular grade where we need to purchase additional licenses, we build that into the budget annually. It's not typically a huge cost. I mean, we do have variance year to year, but it's certainly not as significant as the initial adoption. That's been our typical practice through the years, to budget on current numbers, and then annually when we build our budget, if we need to account for additional numbers coming in, we do that.
Okay, perfect. That answers my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Any other questions, comments,
Yeah.
discussion?
I just had a quick question. So for the for the 7th through 12th, basically you're buying seats, as in you're buying slots for students, and then those students just move into that. And when your numbers change, you're going to have either not have to pay for additional seats, or you'll have to pay for more seats.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Ms. Stevens? Yes, go for it.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Williams, go ahead.
When we had our committee meeting, that digital if I can speak, subscription cost was over that $100 mark, and it pushed us above that 53,000 savings in the handwriting books. So question, did they just did you guys have to go renegotiate, or did they come back and it just happened to work well?
No, we were in the process of renegotiating that price. We just hadn't gotten the final answer. Our sales rep and her manager were working with individuals higher up in their company, and they weren't able to respond to us by the time we met with academic committee last week. So that was something we were in the process of doing when we met with you last week, but wanted to give you the higher potential cost and be able to come down this week than the other way around.
Excellent, excellent. That's excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any other comments or questions? Looking across the screen, don't see any.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Demaria.
That mute button. Thank you. Mr. Albrecht hit all my notes here, except for early on, you guys did a lot of work on this. Early on, you talked about it was open for public input. Was there any public input? There normally isn't, but.
We did not receive any public input.
Okay. The second thing is, and I'm sure this is the norm, but if this is mostly digital, right? There's a $26,436 shipping and handling. Does that seem out of line to anybody else for something that, I mean, $26,000. I'll run a truck down to Texas and get it if that's where it is. It just seems a little bit high. Was there any questioning of that, or?
Are you referencing K through 6, Mr. Demaria?
Or wherever the heck it was. Yes.
Alba, can you shift to? Yeah, thank you.
Right there.
Correct. So at K through 6, there is a student workbook that is a consumable workbook that will arrive annually. We don't need to pay the shipping annually or pay for the book annually. It's a one-time cost included in the contract. But that's what the shipping is for the actual consumable book that the students will utilize.
It also is for the shared book room. So each school is receiving a book room with about 45 titles per level, levels A to Z. So it's a significant sized book room, as well as other teaching materials like anchor charts and teachers editions. So for scholastic literacy, there's a pretty significant physical piece that we'll be receiving.
Okay, good answer. And don't ever apologize for your children.
Thank you. My husband's out there trying to get them with pizza. And
well, you can apologize for your husband, but not your kids. That we're in the kid business. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, there's a motion on the table by Ms. Demaria, second by Mrs. Seberg, that we waive second reading and approve this K-12 English Language Arts Resource Adoption. Mrs. Garza, may you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Chairman Williams,
Aye.
Vice Chairwoman Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Demaria,
Aye.
Mr. Albrecht,
Aye.
Mrs. Seaver,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Stevens,
Aye.
Thank you, Mrs. Garza. The motion passes 7-0. And again, Dr. Kremp, Ms. James, thank you very, very much for your work and your efforts. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, next item on the agenda, Student Services 2020-2021 School Crisis Plan Update. I believe Dr. Stone will give the update.
Good evening, Chairman Williams, Vice Chairwoman Kiefer, Dr. Newman, members of the board. We are here this evening to discuss the school crisis emergency management and medical emergency plans that are updated and developed each year. As I kind of say every year and just want to repeat, we are risk management specialists and our school safety coordinators and their teams at every school work really hard to make sure that our students are provided with a safe and secure learning environment. They take a lot of time with these plans and updating them and making sure everything is in accordance with the Code of Virginia that I've listed there. We have a variety of Manassas City groups who provide input and guidance. The Police Department, Fire and Rescue, City Emergency Management, and the Department of Family Services. They also conduct reviews of our processes, procedures, and drills kind of regularly with us. These groups are always ready to support our schools at any time that we ask in a variety of ways. We also have a variety of other groups who provide templates for our work and updates on legal changes or other requirements that impact our plans, and that's the Virginia Center for School Safety, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, Prince William Health Department, Virginia Department of Education, and the American Red Cross. We are thankful to have those people who we can also call on pretty much at a moment's notice if we have questions about our plans as we update them. The School Crisis Emergency Management and Medical Emergency Plan meets the requirements of the Virginia Administrative Code for tornado drills, the Virginia Code for lockdown drills, and the plan meets the requirements of the Virginia Statewide Fire Prevention Code for fire drills, but exceeds the requirements of the Virginia Code for fire drills. A little information on fire drills, just so we know. The Virginia Code calls for 2 fire drills in the first 20 days of school, and then 2 fire drills for the remainder of the year. However, the Virginia Statewide Fire Prevention Code requires 1 fire drill per month. So we do have a few less fire drills this year. We are not requiring 1 for each of the first 4 weeks of school. We are just requiring 1 per month of school. And also for the update, those plans are available. There is 1 for the division and 1 for each school, available for any school board members review at any time. You would just need to let someone at central office know, and that can be provided to you. And that is the end of the update.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stone. Well done. Any comments, questions? Ms. Demaria.
I was going to stay quiet, but I can't. I think this is well done. I'm always a big fan of fire drills and earthquake drills, and I am pleased that we're not going to have quite as many this year. Kids will be very well prepared with what we've got scheduled. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Demaria. Appreciate that. There are no other comments or questions. Thank you, Dr. Stone. So you're so good, no one could say anything. So except Ms. Demaria, of course. But all right. Next item on the agenda: old business, COVID-19 update on MCPS. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. I want to start off with our Weems Mill distribution site, just to give an update on that. We had to close the meal distribution for 2 weeks due to an employee being exposed to the COVID-19. The employee has not tested positive, but was around a relative. We worked with the health department, who thought, just out of caution, that we should close the site and give it a deep cleaning. So that is why we have closed it for 2 weeks. The cleaning took place yesterday, and the site will be ready for June 1st for the next meal distribution at Weems. I had the opportunity to join Ms. Johnson's second grade class at Weems in their Zoom lesson. Ms. Johnson did a great job. She started off the lesson with praising the students for the growth during their iReady sessions. Then she showed the career day presentation that they will have, where they will highlight 26 different career paths with video from the guest speakers. And then she finished the lesson reading the class book with them. She asked questions to students I thought were very attentive throughout, gave very spirited answers. You know, I didn't see any cartwheels or flips until the very end. They were all engaged until then. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to join Ms. Wingfield and Ms. Amber from Communications as we went and surprised our Washington Post Teacher of the Year, Chris Short, and our Principal of the Year, Kara Grasser, with those awards and yard signs and dinner for them and the family. I wish we could honor them here tonight, but that will have to wait until we can all meet in person, which I hope will be sometime soon. On June 9th, well, not me personally, Dr. Saunders will present our task force for reopening strategy. And on the 23rd meeting, she will provide an update on the task force work. They will have their first official kickoff meeting on the 21st. Tonight, I have two presentations, one from Dr. Cramp on our learning plan, and then that will be followed by Mr. Flugraf, who will present Osborne's senior recognition plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cramp.
Good evening again. Thank you so much, Dr. Newman. I am here to share with you an update for our summer learning plans. Next slide, please, Alba. In terms of what's happening at the high school, we will be operating summer school for both credit recovery classes as well as economics and personal finance. It will be offered in a completely virtual environment. We will be working through our platform Edmentum with support from Osborne staff. So students will be assigned courses in Edmentum as needed, and we have Osborne high school teachers by content assigned to support students in that learning. We will not be offering an SOL boot camp, again, due to the waiver regarding SOL assessments and no assessments taking place at this time. We will not offer that. And our ESOL Academy that we run for our newcomers in the summer, it definitely requires in-person. They do a lot of experiences out and about in the community while they continue to build their language skills. And so that decision was made to suspend the ESOL Academy for this summer as well. I'm currently working with Mr. Smith at the high school, and we are on track to provide 6 weeks of instruction for students who sign up for credit recovery. And I will work with Al and her department and Osborne as we communicate out to the students, directions for registration, how to get started with coursework, if they need to retain their tablet in the summer so they can continue coursework, etc. All of those details we are working in conjunction with the high school to make sure our students are prepared to be successful if they need to take a credit recovery course or economics and personal finance. Next slide, please. In terms of K-12, we have three different options, two options happening K-12 and an additional option happening K through 8. in order to encourage students to engage in learning throughout the summer. First is our Learning at Home website. We launched this website when we began our closure and offer resources to students and families through that site. It includes sample daily schedules, as well as additional places they can go, to access resources in all contents. That site will still be open and available all summer, and we will encourage families to continue to access that site as they have been. Prior to all of this happening with COVID-19 and our closure, I was working with Mr. Hernandez and our ITTS staff to build some summer enrichment courses in Schoology. We had a lot of dialogue on within our Department of Instruction related to wanting to continue summer opportunities for learning for all kids, not just students who were identified for summer school at any level. And so we have been working to build an enrichment course by grade level. Those courses will be pushed out to all students through their Schoology pages. We are almost there. I had some dialogue with Mr. Hernandez today, and we were looking at the courses again today, and we'll certainly be ready by next Friday for those courses to be pushed out to our students. But there is a course for each grade level. It includes some videos with some teaching that reiterates concepts covered in the grade level that the students have just completed, additional resources, and links from the Virginia Department of Education Summer Enrichment site. So our families don't have to go there. We've brought all of that into the Schoology course. So again, when a student logs in, they'll go to the grade level that they just completed, and there they will find all 4 course subjects as well as fitness resources. And that will be an additional place that students can continue to access for summer learning. Next slide, please, Alba. And then K-8, we have our iReady platform. iReady will be available all summer, as it has been throughout the school closure period. Students get personalized lessons in iReady, and so we definitely want to encourage our students to continue daily practice in reading and math through the iReady platform. We will offer an iReady challenge, asking students to complete and pass 8 lessons in reading and 8 lessons in math over the course of the summer. We have a log form that they will fill out and plan to turn in the fall. And each school will provide a prize if students meet the iReady challenge. The prize is certainly to be determined as we wait and see what kind of structure we're working within when the fall begins. But we are encouraging the iReady challenge for all students K through 8. Next slide, please, Alba. In terms of communication, Osborne is ready, as I said, at the end of this week to send communication out to their student body about registering and enrolling in the economics and personal finance course or other credit recovery courses for their virtual summer school option. And then I will be working with Al and her team towards the end of next week, believe it or not, or the beginning of that first week in June, to advertise out to all of our families about the K-12 options of our Learning at Home site and the Schoology enrichment course, and then the K-8 additional option of the iReady challenge. We will certainly put that out on social media and our website, both school websites and division websites, and any means that we have to be able to communicate that out to our families. And that is an update about our plans for continued learning throughout the summer.
Chairman Williams, do you want to pause for questions, or do you want to jump right into Mr. Flugraf?
Joe, any questions or comments about Dr. Cramp's presentation?
I actually had one question.
Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the credit recovery, I know last year, like for online school, for like summer school, it was like $400 per course. Is that going to be for the credit recovery too?
Credit recovery, we follow the school board approved fee structure, and there is a sliding scale depending upon situation, but I believe the max amount, and Mr. Hawkins could probably correct me if I'm wrong, is $275 per course for credit recovery, and again, a sliding scale downward dependent upon situation, but we do follow the school board approved fee structure for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
To Mr. Westcott. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any, so thank you very much, Dr. Cramp. We appreciate that, and we're glad that we're proactively looking on ways to help our students, because this is a special time and we definitely need to engage them as much as we can. So thank you very much for being proactive with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Newman, back to you.
Now we're going to have Mr. Flugraf. He's going to discuss his plan for senior recognition.
Good evening, Chairman Williams, Vice Chair Kiefer, and Dr. Newman and the school board. I appreciate your time this evening. We have a number of items that we do to recognize our seniors during this time. I want to highlight a couple. One is we're proposing a senior drive-by, like you would say goodbye, right? So the teachers and students could say goodbye to each other. And this would be on May 27th. This is the day of their original graduation. So Albert, you can go to the next slide. This would honor class of 2020 and recognize the day of their original graduation, and to do this in a safe way, but give them some recognition of the meaning of this day in their senior year. And we want to do this. This will be in compliance with all the governor's guidelines and health department guidelines as well. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Alba. The expectations for the senior drive-by would be they would come into the bus loop at Osborne. We have worked with parents, students, and faculty to get input on this event. The students and parents would be in their cars, and we would have signs posted around Osborne, and also teachers and staff standing 10 feet apart on Osborne and Baldwin property, where we could recognize them and wave goodbye to them, and they could also visit their school one more time before graduation at least. And it would drive through similar to how you would see one of those birthday party parades where the people stay in their cars and they drive by and we recognize them. I did coordinate with the city on this as well about the safety, and they made sure there's no meetups ahead of time that would be any crowds, and we would be in compliance with that. We wouldn't close any roads, but we would do this here at Osborne. We'd also have the lights, the stadium lights turn on at 20 hours, which non-military people, that'd be 8:20 p.m. To honor the class of 2020. We turn them off at 10 p.m. As a way to recognize them. You can go to the next slide, Alba. All the guidelines from the CDC and the governor's orders will be in place with no groups of more than 10 and everybody's spaced out. But at the same time, I think we can safely recognize this date for our seniors. In conjunction with this, there is a banner placed in Old Town. Historic Masses supported us. And also we are getting a banner to be placed next to our eagle here out front. And on the fence line that faces Mets, where the Eagles is in cups, there we have ribbons, one for each senior where they can sign their name. And those places also offer spots for seniors at some later date to get a picture with their parents in their cap and gown. That's the first event. The next event, if there's any questions, I'll have you to answer those. Or the next event I'd like to talk to you about is our graduation plan. Okay, the plan for graduation. It is our vision for Osborne High School to provide a safe in-person graduation experience for each senior and their parents and guardians, following the CDC guidelines and government orders. This will be done starting July 18th and will be done by appointment. The students would be assigned a time. Their parents would come in with the student. We got this from a neighboring or a county called Louisa County. We had a conference call with superintendents and principals around the state. And this procedure follows all the safety guidelines, but it still honors a personal in-person graduation ceremony. We could graduate 12 graduates an hour, and this would last through July 25th. We incorporate time in there for rain date and rescheduling. It would take place at our stadium. The first station, they would pull into the parking lot. Actually, Albert, you can show the pictures. I can just walk through the stations there with the picture of it. The first station, they walk into the parking lot, drive into the parking lot. They'd be greeted by Osborne staff member and our SRO. They would park in an area we would mark for their time, such as 9 o'clock spot. They would stay in their car until we directed to come out. They come out of their car and go to station 2. And that's where they turn in any outstanding items they may have to us to collect. They would then walk to station 3. At that point, we collect information from them, such as verifying email, phone numbers, contact information. We would always keep one station vacant between each group. So when one group goes from station 3 to 4, then the next group would be at station 2. So it'd always be one open between. Station 4, we'd help give them their cords, medallions, and any awards they have. We'd have those pre-packaged in a bag. The person would be handing them with gloves on. Of course, they change gloves multiple times during the day. The student would be able to put on their cords and stoles and medallions for graduation. Stage 5, we'd have some mirrors set up where kids could get fixed and ready for graduation, so they're ready to go. Stage 6, they come onto the field. We have a staff member greet them with a walkie-talkie. We just verifying the name. We'd radio up to the press box. The announcer would then call out the name and honor graduate or whatever what goes with that person. They'd move to station 7. The student and parents would separate. The student would come to the stage and pick up their diploma. We'd have someone slide to the table. The parents would walk in front of the stage. The students would get their diploma, and I would be on the stage on a podium. We have a photographer there, take a picture. We'd be 6 feet apart. We have it set up so it looks a little bit closer than 6 feet, but 6 feet apart. Then they walk off the stage and go to station 9. There'd be a photographer there. They'd have a group photo with their parents and then also one individually. We'd have 2020 painted on the field. We'll have it painted on the field in multiple areas as the sun, moves throughout the day and the shadows change, so the photographer can move with that. They leave the stadium area to station 10. They're actually only in the stadium for about 5 minutes. This moves pretty quickly. Station 10, they would take another picture. Station 11, they would get a parting gift. We'd give them a yard sign, say proud Osborne graduate, parting gift. And then station 12, they get to their car. Station 13 at the top would be access for emergency personnel if we needed. We could have our certified athletic trainer there as well. And water obviously available for this summer heat. So this would be done individually. This is based off the current restrictions we have and guidelines. If by chance there's some opening of groups of 10 or could view it, we could certainly do that. Down to parking lot by station 10, we could have groups of 10, or even if it gets even more, if the governor allows more, we could have those groups come in and enter into the stands and witness the ceremony at that time. This is probably the most restrictive environment as I'm presenting it right now, as if nothing changes between now and July 18th, we'd be in compliance with all of the safety regulations. Like I said, I would be out there the whole time. We would be done by the 25th, actually maybe before, if it depends on the weather and amount of rain that would take place. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Mr. Flugrath, for such a thoughtful way to celebrate our students. I appreciate the time and diligence that went into it. I see Mr. Albrecht is lit up a little bit. Do you have a question, Mr. Albrecht?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have 2 questions. Has anybody, I guess, as we were doing the coordination, raised the question of a temporal scanning station?
We did talk about it, about taking temperatures and that type of thing. We have been working with, but we didn't put it into place at this point. But we did discuss it. We've been meeting each week. I'm glad you brought this up. Our graduation committee meets every week, and we coordinate with the Manassas City Police, of course, SRO. And I do want to acknowledge our assistant principal, Bob Nikowski, who's been running those meetings, put a lot of time in. And we've been sharing information with other jurisdictions as well. And that may be something that we need to implement into Station 1, really, when you get out of your car. If not, definitely Station 2 when you drop off your belongings before you proceed any farther. We'll keep monitoring that. I did also want to add Station 11, when you leave, the students will also get a link to the virtual graduation. We are doing speeches still via a virtual graduation where all the speeches will be included, and each student will have a short video clip of about 17 seconds. So they'll have that memory as well besides the in-person graduation.
Thank you. My second question really flows exactly into what you're just talking about, Mike. And that is, you've got a really well-structured plan. Do we have a Wi-Fi capability up in the press box that you could have a camera just continuously streaming so that people could tell their grandparents, uncles, whatever, hey, look for me at this URL at this time, and I'll be walking across the stage?
Yes, we can offer that live stream because there's a lot of people, as you know, that might not be able to travel. Even if they're allowed to come in a stadium, they might not be able to travel to get here to participate. So we can offer that live streaming URL to families. And also there's some military families that are deployed around that just wouldn't be able to get back anyway. But you have that, and you have a travel restriction. So yes, we'll offer that option or that access for people.
It's a great plan. And I really appreciate the fact that you've creatively figured out a way to recognize the kids, and hopefully the community will be able to watch it and appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Good points. Any other comments or questions? Mr. DeMaria.
Yes, sir. Thank you. What Mr. Albrecht said, what a lot of work to go into this. Hopefully we'll be able to do it all in one day because there'll be a vaccine and the world will be in a better place. But this is the right way to go, to have it planned out for this long. I've had some reservations about what this will do to the field to be on it for that long. It could knock the field back a little bit in the areas that we're worried about, but this Bermuda grass, once we get off of it on the 25th, give it a week, it's going to pop right back. So if there's anybody that's concerned about the damage to the field, I really think it will be minimal, if any, by the time, hopefully, by the time, I guess football starts in the end of August, by the time they get onto this field. So I think we should be fine with that as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeMaria. Any other comments or questions? Seberg.
Question, thank you. Mr. Flugrath, when on the senior drive-by, is there any suggestions for citizens that might want to help participate in some way? Is there any, in a safe way? Is there any suggestions you have for them?
Yeah, we could, one of the suggestions we were kicking around is if citizens wanted to come in the parking lot and stay in their car, and we could leave a parking spot open in between each spot, that they may be able to get a better view. As far as participating and helping out, we definitely want their help and need their help with signage. I know I want to give a lot of credit here to Ms. Spall and Ms. Washington, who've done a lot of work on this. But we really like the seniors when they drive through to make it special for them. I know it's still light out at 6 o'clock, so they'll be able to see pretty well, but we want to make it as special to make them feel cared for. So any type of decorations or signage or anything way we can spruce up our drive-through area would be great.
And maybe these details are yet to be decided, but how are they accessing the parking lot? Is it like closer to where the old Baldwin was or where new Baldwin?
It's closer to where old Baldwin it was, and then they'll do like a U shape and come out where the new Baldwin is. So
okay,
right. They could actually go through more than once if they really want to. They could circle back around, but that would be the idea. Come in closer to the field, practice field.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Seberg. Any other comments or questions?
Chairman Williams, I don't know if we need an official vote, but we would like to get a blessing from the board for the drive-by. And when it comes to graduation, we do want everybody to know that we made every attempt to have an in-person graduation on July 18th or the 25th. During our weekly call with the state superintendent, someone from the Virginia Department of Health presented last week and informed us that any graduation that was planned for July, that it was highly unlikely, as that size of an event would not be permitted until phase 3. And as you know, in Northern Virginia, we have yet to get to phase 1. So it was going to be highly unlikely, and we wanted to make sure we did something to honor our seniors before they took off to college or to one of our military services. So I want to thank Mr. Flugraff and his staff for all the work that they've put in with the weekly meetings. And again, I don't know if we need an official vote, but if it's okay with the board, if they have any reservations with the drive-by idea, if they can share that. We just want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our seniors, but also not doing anything that's outside of the board's wishes.
I don't know if we need an official vote since it's not an action we're taking per se, but I do think that I would like everyone to just weigh in, and I'll start with Ms. Kiefer and go across, I guess, and make sure everyone's fine with it, if that's okay with you.
Sure. I'll just jump in first, Mr. Flugrath, and to the team and to the community for pulling this together is just both amazing and very much appreciated. I fully support and agree that we need to honor the students who've worked so very hard and their families who want to celebrate with them. So I feel very comfortable with the plan, and I just applaud the efforts that you, sir, and the city have done to make this happen for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go over next on my screen, Ms. Stevens.
Just like Ms. Kiefer, I really have to say I appreciate all the hard work that's been done by the school, by the city, by the community, by Ms. Spall. This is a really difficult time for our seniors. They never had a chance to say goodbye, but this is going to give them a graduation I think they're never going to forget. They're going to be that class that gets to say to their grandkids, when I graduated from high school, this is how I had to do it. So I think you're taking what has been a very difficult situation for many of them and trying to do something very unique and something very different and special, that they're the only ones who can say, I got to do this. So as a school board member, as a parent, I really appreciate all the work that's been done and all of the out of the box thinking that's been done to get to this point. So thank you very much for the work.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams.
I think this is fantastic, and this is a rite of passage for all of our seniors into adulthood, and I think this is extremely necessary. And I wouldn't expect anything less from Mr. Flugrath. So I think this is fantastic, and I don't know how many people look at Facebook, but Kettle Run High School just did something similar to the drive-by, and the videos I've seen on Facebook look amazing, and it looks like it was done very well. So absolutely, I am on board with this idea.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Albrecht.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think the board members before me really phrased it well. This is certainly a different time, and this is definitely well thought out and well planned. I think the only thing I'd add is this is not a mandatory event. And if people don't feel safe, they don't have to do it. But I think everything Mr. Flugraf has presented, we're complying with all of the various CDC state guidelines, requirements to make it as memorable and unique an event to help people bring closure to the end of this chapter of their lives at Osborne as they get ready to either go to the workforce, go to post-secondary education, whatever it might be. So I give staff a whole lot of credit for the research and the thought they've put into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Good points. Ms. Seberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fulgrath, I just really appreciate all your efforts towards recognizing our students for this. And it's not just for the students, but it's for their families. I know there's been so many families that are just waiting to celebrate their kids. So thank you for putting all the emphasis on safety and following all the rules. And as far as safety goes, like during the drive-by, is there, like, will we have security or?
We'll have our SRO there, and we can certainly, we've been working with not only Officer Grigsby, but Lieutenant Shields.
Okay.
We can have multiple officers there and our school security as well, actually. So we'll have our admin folks here as well. We'll mark off the spot. Yeah.
I hope it's fun for the kids, and I hope it's great for their family. I look forward to participating in some way. I'll get my posters out. I'll get them there somehow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seberg. Mr. DeMaria.
Last but not least, everybody said everything that needs to be said. Ms. Flugrath, thank you very much to you and your staff and to everybody to try and figure out this crap show we've got going on right now. There's no right answer. Ms. Seberg said she appreciates you following all the rules. I'm not quite in agreement with that. I'd like to break some rules if necessary for our kids because the rules have been broken on them. So whatever we can do, I think we ought to do everything we can do. And I appreciate you looking for to celebrate these kids. But Ms. Stevens is right. I'm going to get back to on this map here where the stage was when I graduated. And I don't remember a whole lot other than when it was over going out. But she's right. These kids are going to remember this forever. So silver lining. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Westcott there. Do you have any comments, Mr. Westcott, you want to make pertaining to this, since you're the only student amongst us?
Well, I just wanted to say that it's really cool that we're doing something for the seniors, because you see how other schools are just going the digital route. So it's nice that even if it's not the full graduation, it's still something physical to help them feel like they're celebrating the graduation. So that's just really good for the seniors.
Thank you. Great point. And before we end up on this topic, thank you again, Mr. Flugrath, for all your efforts, Ms. Houskett, everyone who's put so much time and energy into this. I'm keenly aware of the health restrictions there because I have someone who's off camera who's listening to all this stuff. But thank you for doing what you can to help our students. And in terms of streaming, one thing that occurs to me, it may be good to do a Facebook Live and an IG Live as well, in part because some folks may not have access to a computer or internet, but they may have the apps on their phone, and able to access it that way, even folks overseas. So Facebook and IG Live should be cost-free, I would think, in terms of broadcasting in addition to a URL. So it might be another option. But looks great. Thank you for your passion and for wanting to help our students, because this is a special time and we're trying to do what we can for them. And this is one thing we can do. So thank you for your thoughts with this.
Thank you, sir. We are also doing a senior highlight video for the kids, and we're doing senior academic awards for them virtually, and athletic awards end of year, and letters for the kids and that type of thing as well. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any way we can support or help the effort, please let us know. We all love our students and want to do what we can to help. So please let us know.
Thank you.
No problem. Dr. Newman, Any other updates under COVID-19?
That's all for today. On the 9th, Dr. Stone will be presenting social emotional efforts.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we move on to the last part of the agenda, the action portion of the agenda, Finance and Operations, revised FY 2021-2025 CIP and 5-year forecast. Mr. Hawkins, the floor is yours.
All right, we'll start with the PowerPoint. We'll go down. Next slide, please, Albert. If you remember, this is the same spreadsheet we showed last week where it just documents the projected deferral from the city of $1 million. And what we know now is a projected deferral from the state at a little over $1.6 million for a total projected revenue deferral of $2.6 million, a little over $2.6 million. We are calling it a deferral because that's what the city and that's what the state, the governor is talking about. If revenue projections come back or start to meet the projections that the city council has in the FY 21 budget, we are anticipating that we would receive some or all of this $1 million back in FY 21. Same thing with the state. The governor has promised that he's going to bring the General Assembly back into session either late summer or early fall, and they will get additional revenue updates at that time. And we are hopeful that we will have receive additional state funds at that time to meet this this projected deferral of almost $2.7 million. So during last week's budget work session, you saw a similar chart like this, except we have made one change. We changed the number of positions that we have on hold. The first line in last week's slide showed using contingency reserve of $100,000. We heard the board's concern and comments about using contingency reserve. So during the interim, we've gone back and placed 3 additional positions on hold. We had 5 last week. We're at 8 this week. The ones that were added are the ones at the bottom, is a counselor at Osborne High School, workforce development specialist, and a social worker position. So all the positions that are on hold, and when I say hold, they're actually being eliminated out of the budget until such time as revenue is released from either from the city and from the state. So that equates to $722,000. The rest of the slides have part of the slide where we talked last week about purchasing textbooks and out of FY20 money to free up money in FY21 of a little over $1.2 million. Purchase of technology in FY20 instead of in FY21 was equal to $675,000, and we are reducing educational supplies and services to the schools for approximately $208,000. We also heard comments and concerns from the board about increasing the amount of funds that we have in the contingency reserve. So we are placing another $201,000 back into contingency reserve, which will increase our reserve now from $450,000 to a little over $601,000. These funds will be used to offset any future revenue shortfalls that we may have. Back on the first slide, you will remember it says it doesn't take into account reductions in sales tax or lottery proceeds. So we may have some additional revenue issues that we need to deal with in FY21. So we talked about the textbook adoption. You heard about that tonight and have approved it. So we're going to be in the next few days writing a purchase order out of FY20 funds to purchase those textbooks in this year's budget so that we can eliminate them in the FY20 budget. Same thing with the technology. And educational supplies and services have been reduced proportionally across all schools. As we discussed last week about the CARES Act funding of approximately $1 million. Some of that money will have to be shared with the private schools in our area. We've had ongoing meetings for the last couple of days with those schools, and we are working with that right now. But our budget, the amount of money that we anticipate MCPS having will be approximately $1 million. So I want everybody to understand that this money, this CARES Act money, cannot be used to offset the $1 million reduction or deferral that we have from the city, or the $1.6 million deferral from the state. These funds need to be spent on cost recovery due to the coronavirus, the additional expenses that we've incurred for that. And we're planning on providing funding for technological needs so that we can ensure that all of our students have access to our virtual learning environment. And we will be using the funds, the remainder of those funds, to support education, whatever we need. Also, those funds can be used for whatever other issues that we might need to get back into school at some point this year, whether it be increased cleaning, whether it be personal protective equipment, whether it be some other thing. So we don't know what those needs are at that time. We just know that we're going to have additional funds for expenses as we go back, or we try to transition back into going to school. It could be everything from increased fuel costs for buses or whatever. We're just not at that point right now. And that's when, I think Dr. Newman mentioned tonight that Dr. Saunders would be giving an update shortly about the work of the task force. We'll know more then how we hope to transition back to going to school in August. So with that, are there any questions or concerns about the PowerPoint before we switch to the 5-year forecast? This is the last PowerPoint slide as a spreadsheet showing the breakdown, where approximately 86% of our total budget is made up of personnel salary and benefits, and you can see the breakdown of all of the other expenses in the FY21 budget.
I had a question. Andy, can you further explain how the CARES funds are being shared with the private schools?
We're required under Title I, all Title I funds for years have to be shared with the private school, and we reach out to them. Sometimes they take us up on those, using some of those funds. Sometimes they don't. I think we have 2 private schools. One of them will participate. The other one has always declined to participate. So it's the federal government has I want to say it's equity provision in the Title I funds, and we're required to reach out to them. And the funding is done on a per student basis with the private school. And since we are so much larger than these private schools, we will certainly get the majority of this funding.
So what is it? Is it 1.6 million in CARES funds? So that's going to be split with us and the private schools if they choose to participate. Would that be correct?
No, the CARES Act funds is not 1.6 million. It's $1,064,000 or something like that. So the private schools, the maximum amount that I think that the private schools would be entitled to, if they chose to participate, would be approximately $65,000. So, that leaves a balance for Manassas City of approximately $1 million that we can use for our needs with CARES Act funding.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Andy, I don't know if anybody watched the city, but at the beginning of the meeting, they made a motion to lower the tax rate from 148 this year to 146 next year, and that passed 5-1. And the meeting went on, and then at the end of the meeting, Mrs. Coates Ellis made a motion to relook at that, and so they voted that to allow that on a 4-2 vote. So at this point, but they couldn't do it last night. They have to do it in June. So at this point, City Council has still not set a tax rate. Last night it was approved at 146, and then now they're going to look at it again in I think it's June 3rd. I'm not sure their meeting date, where they're allowed to do it, whether they can do it in their budget work session or if they at a regular scheduled meeting. If they lower that further, they lowered it 2 cents and then rescinded that. If they lower that further, would that affect our budget? We're putting forward in case the tax rate is lowered even more than the 146?
I don't think so. The city manager had recommended 144, and I think members of the city council were concerned about not only the COVID revenue that might be coming in. It's one of the reasons I believe that they left it at 146. But they also, there was discussion in one of the city council meetings about setting the difference between 144 and 146 aside for possible future CIP projects like the Dean School. So, but I don't think lowering the tax rate from 146 to 144, if that's what they chose to do at their next meeting, would have any effect on our reductions. Our $1 million. I don't think that the city would cut us more than $1 million.
Okay, thank you, Andy. I was just worried that, without a tax rate being set yet, it might affect us, but if not, that's good to hear. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Albrecht, question?
Yes, sir. Just a comment, really, sir. Thank you for the recognition. I want to thank staff for listening to the board last week and going back and making difficult decisions. I know they weren't easy, and yes, we know it's going to impact the schools. But the last couple of days, I've been watching Fed Chair Powell, Secretary Mnuchin, and it is sobering at times and depressing. And as a nation, it does not look like this is going to be this rapid recovery. So while the city and the state are talking about this funding being a deferral, all indications are it's deferred for at least a year, and that's in a best case scenario. So, the reductions we've made to meet that need, the increased contingency, because we just don't know what the rules are going to be as we look to reopen. I really appreciate what staff has done, trying, to do the best we can for the children, but also being as fiscally responsible as we consistently always are. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the floor is yours. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the information you presented?
No, thank you. Let's go to the 5-year forecast. We'll need to look at that. You need to have a motion on B. Is that what you're saying? Okay. I would say we have to have a motion on B before we can move back to A.
Yes, that would be great.
I can read, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht.
Mr. Chair, I move the school board of the city of Manassas approve the revised fiscal year 2021 budget as required through the exercise going through COVID-19, as presented in the amount of $124,203,000 $470, and authorize the school board chairman to transmit these estimates to the City Council of Manassas in accordance with school board policy and Virginia State Code.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Albrecht, second, I'll give it to Mrs. Kiefer, that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the revised FY 2020-2021 budget with COVID-19 as presented in the amount of $124,203,470 and authorize the school board chairman to transmit these estimates to the City Council of Manassas in accordance with school board policy and Virginia State Code. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? And before we do an all in favor, I should ask Mrs. Garza to do a roll call vote per our requirements for our virtual meetings.
Chairman Williams,
Aye.
Vice Chairwoman Kiefer,
Aye.
Aye.
Albrecht,
Aye.
Seaver,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Stevens,
Aye.
The ayes have it 7-0 and the motion passes. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Mr. Hawkins.
All right, let's, can we go to the 5-year forecast first? I hope you can see this on the screen, but what we've done is that we went and changed our state and city revenue. We revised this from when you approved it last on March 26th. We revised the state revenue down to the most conservative, to the numbers that we've been given by the state at this time. So we're showing these deferrals as being actual reductions in FY21. The state revenue has gone down and the city revenue has gone down as well. Now, going forward, when you go to FY 22, 23, 24, we've increased the state contribution by 2% each year, and the city contribution by 1.8% each year. So, but we don't have an agreement with the city right now on future funding, and we realize that that is negotiated or part of their plan. I know that the school board anyway hopes that we will get back and start having negotiations with the city to have a formal funding agreement going forward. But at this time, we don't have one. And so we don't have anything to go on but what was originally adopted by City Council for the FY21 budget, which was a 1.8% increase. So going forward in FY22 and future years, it's at 1.8% as well. I just want you to be careful and understand that that doesn't obligate the city. We either more or less than 1.8% in future years. That's just all we had to go by at that time. Our FY21 expenditures of $106,922 are actual expenditures in the budget for this year. Going forward for FY22, FY23 and future years, as far as those instruction expenditures are concerned, they're going up at 3.25%, as has been what historically has been for Manassas City, our annual increase in our expenditures. If we go down, you'll see that the CIP is still at $3 million. Our debt service and is about $5,593,000. Plus, we have some long-term commitments, primarily from the energy performance project, and some copier leases, capital leases, in the amount of $533,000. So our debt service fund in total is $6,126,000 balance. As you go down, you can see what our fund balance is as of June 30th of last year is $7,759,000, and we will update that going forward for FY21 as soon after June the 30th as we possibly can. It will probably be back in front of the board in late August or early September when we close out the FY20 year. The fiscal year is closed out, and we officially move forward as far as in accounting terms is concerned into FY21. We go to the CIP now. The CIP really hasn't changed since you adopted it, has not changed since you adopted it back in December. We still have $3 million city transfer as part of our transfer from the city for the CIP. We are bringing forward from FY19 money we had set aside of $557,000. And then you can see the expenses there where we have technology upgrades, school bus replacements, additions, possibility for having division-wide classroom trailers, depending on if we have enrollment changes and we need capacity in our schools. Also, you see in FY21 where we're beginning the process of transitioning over for a new central office. We have $500,000 set aside for architecture and engineering services, presumably to move to design into the old police station that is occupied now by the city. We still have not, as far as Dr. Newman can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have not received any formal proposal from the city, whether it be in a purchase or a lease for us to be able to get this property. We are not, of course, we will not be spending any of these funds on a building that we don't have authority to be in. So those services will be delayed until such time as we get notification from the city that once the new fire building is built on Grand Avenue, that the school board will be control of the police station, so the current police station. Then we'll start our architectural engineering there, and you can see moving forward in FY22 and FY23, the renovations that were projected renovation costs that were projected for that building going forward into those 2 years. And hopefully by FY24, we will transition from this building into to that building. All of that is a lot of ifs right now. As soon as we start receiving notification from the city that building, that we have control over that building, we'll start moving in this direction. If that doesn't happen, we will start looking for office space elsewhere if that need be, whether that be staying here in our current location or moving to another location. And we will bring those options back to the school board at that time. In FY21, you'll see that we have a roof replacement in there for Mayfield. And we're also, the AC system could not be replaced at rain last summer due to our short summer. So that project is being done right now. So the HVAC system replacement and the Mayfield roof replacement are being done this summer, both of them as we speak. Those contracts, those RFPs have been done and those contracts have been signed.
Mr. Hawkins, I just wanted to add that I did talk to the city manager today during our monthly meeting, and we did. And we did talk about the police station. At that time, he asked, were there any concerns from the board? And I shared that I've heard from some of our school board members that the length of the lease was an issue. He's going to take that back to their attorney to see if that can change to a longer lease period, which was the desire of some of our board members. If you have any other concerns that you would like for me to share with him, please send them to me and I can get those out so we can get an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins, and thank you, Dr. Newman. Before we go further, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the 2021 through 2025 capital improvement plan. COVID-19 as presented, and authorize the school board chairman to transmit these schedules to the city council of Manassas in accordance with school board policy and Virginia state code.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Albrecht, second by Mrs. Kiefer, that the school board of the city of Manassas approve the revised, which is actually the same, FY 2021-2025 5-year forecast COVID-19 is presented, and authorize the school board chairman to transmit these schedules to the city council of Manassas in accordance with school board policy and Virginia state code. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Williams,
Yes.
I believe we did the wrong motion. We were supposed to do the one for the CIP.
That the school board approve the revised 2021 5-year forecast? We read that, we did the first one already, the 124. Yeah, this is the right one. We did them out of order.
Right.
Thank you.
Discussion, sir.
Yes.
Clearly, one of the elephants we really are going to need to tackle sooner than later is the central office replacement. And I think we'd all be in agreement. We're not going to go initiating A&E fees until we have a solid plan in place for what I think, or I thought we all had agreed to. And certainly with the deferral of $1 million in this year's budget, it would seem to me we've made a significant down payment on the acquisition of that building. So it's we do this every time. We always have to use a lot of fund balance in the out years. There are just so many uncertainties. We're fortunate that we're going to get through a year or two right now. So thank you.
Great point. Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Any other comments or discussions?
I'll have one, sir, on the police station.
Please.
I'm not going to be able to quote the law here, but I believe the lease, if it's going to be a lease, it has to be long enough to justify this government entity spending $6.5 million, whatever we've got there, on it. You can't have a lease, if I'm correct, of 10 years on something that you put $6.5 million, the right amount of use out of that money. So I believe that was $6.5 million. It's going to have to be somewhere in my mindset, at least 50 years. That building should last 50 years with the $6.5 million we put into it. So hopefully they can come back with something like that. If it's going to be a lease, I think it's got to be at least 50 years to justify us spending that kind of money. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And points well taken by Mr. Demary and Mr. Albrecht, and that's one reason why we have Dr. Newman working with the city manager to ensure that we get a lease term that's beneficial and makes sense for us, our students, our school system, and our city. So those points are very well taken, and I'm sure we'll work collaboratively with the city to get that done. Are there any other comments or discussion? And if not, I'm going to read the entire motion again to make sure we're on the same page. Motion by Mr. Albrecht, second by Mrs. Kiefer. First, the school board of the city of Manassas approved the 2021-2025 capital improvement plan on December 10, 2019. And the motions that the school board of the city of Manassas approved the revised FY 2021-2025 5-year forecast COVID-19 as presented and authorized by school board chairman to transmit these schedules to the City Council of Manassas in accordance with school board policy and Virginia State Code. I believe that is the entirety of the information. And if everyone agrees with that, I will ask Ms. Garza to take a roll call vote.
Chairman Williams? Chairwoman Kiefer?
Aye.
Mr. Demaria?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Seaver?
Aye.
Mrs. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Stevens?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. The ayes have it 7-0 and the motion passes. And before we get to our adjournment, I believe Mr. Flugrath wanted to make an announcement about tomorrow night. Mr. Flugrath, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. We do have a Zoom awards tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Those are our department awards that our teachers nominate seniors for. And I wanted to make sure you knew you were invited to that, and we will send you a Zoom invite for that. If you, it's at 7 p.m. and we're looking forward to honoring some of our seniors there. I also wanted to make sure you knew, going back to the senior drive-through and Ms. Seberg's question about how we can help and participate. Please know the school board is obviously invited to that event as well, and we have spots for you if you wish to attend that event on the 27th as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flugrath. If you could send that to us or have someone send that to us, that would be awesome. I'm sure we will all be happy to attend if we can, and be happy to support you in anything we can do to support our kids. We appreciate that.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
No problem. And with that, actually, before I jump to adjournment, I guess I should have board member comments since you all are here. I'll start off with Mr. Westcott. Do you have any comments, sir?
Oh, I just had one question for Mr. Flugrath. Wait, so are the awards like just for seniors tomorrow, or is it for all grades? I know you just said seniors. Or if you're going to do a separate one for the other grades as well, or?
So we're addressing the seniors tomorrow. We are going to do a separate one for the other grades. We'd like to do those in person, if at all possible, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to see those students, albeit later, but in August at least, or maybe sooner, that we can do that in person. So we want to take care of our seniors first, because we're not sure when we'll be able to see them, and we want to give some the closure to them and do the seniors first.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott. And I'm going to look at my agenda here that Ms. Garza sent me, and the board member order has changed a little bit. So we're going to start with Mr. Demaria first.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. I don't have a whole lot. Mr. Flugrath, I'll see if I can find time in my schedule tomorrow night to attend the Zoom meeting. And on the something to do. I appreciate the invite. I might suggest, sir, that we also invite the mayor and city council, if we can find spots for them 10 feet apart. That would be great. I think they would probably like to be there as well at any event that we have. They need to get out of the house as much as we do. And that's all I've got. I just, I can't wait for it to be over and get back to school and we get back to meetings and seeing everybody in person. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And you actually stole my thunder. I mentioned that to Mr. Flugrath. If also for the Zoom meeting tomorrow, you could send it to the city council as well, and the city manager. So in case they want to participate, because I know they want to support our kids as much as we do. So thank you very much. And Mr. Demaria, we think the second time today we've been thinking alike. So I guess we're in a roll. Next on the list is Mr. Albrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a lot, just I really appreciated the academic update and what kind of remediation we're going to offer over the summer. My biggest fear is what I keep calling the lost year. And we're already seeing the statistic with post-secondary education. Enrollment for the fall semester, scholarship applications are down 10, 20, 30%, depending upon the academic institution. So for the sophomores, juniors out there, if that's a lot of demand, that's being deferred because of the economy, because of a lot of things, because of fear, it's going to make it that much harder for you a year or two from now to get into the college of your choice. So keeping up with your academics is as important as ever. We need to make sure our students understand that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albrecht. Ms. Stevens.
I don't have any comments tonight. I think all of the comments have been made already. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. Mrs. Williams.
I do, sorry. I do. Last week, I attended the Manassas City Public School Education Foundation meeting, and the Innovative Educator Grant recommendations were presented to that entire board. And I cannot wait until I can share with this board the innovative projects our teachers have developed to work hand in hand with all of their students. Grants are a means for our teachers to enthusiastically really provide a different lesson through project-based learning in the hopes of really encouraging their students to truly have that desire for lifelong learning. And in addition, May is Mental Health Month. So I just wanted to encourage you to take your meds every day. And you know what that means? M means to meditate or read and study a verse from the Bible or read your affirmations, something to improve your mindset. Proclaim what you are grateful for on a daily basis, especially during these times. The E is for exercise, even if it's just to go for a walk your dog, ride your bike. The D is for diet. We need to be eating more lean meats, not so many fatty meats, more vegetables, and food that are low in carbohydrates and sugar to keep our brains engaged and for that growth mindset. And the S is for sleep. We need to get our sleep, our 8 hours of sleep. Finding teenagers are staying up way too late during this COVID. Parents are trying to sleep, get to bed earlier, get up earlier, and the kids are still staying up late. So get your sleep. And self-improvement should be our focus every day we are alive. We need to improve upon ourselves every day. And I'd like to speak to what Mr. Albrecht said. It is true. We have got to all recognize how important it is to keep up with our academics right now. The people who are doing it, the people who aren't, you are going to fall behind in a year from now and you're going to regret it. So please focus every day on self-improvement, even if it's just a couple hours. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Very well put. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mrs. Seberg.
No comments this evening, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Seberg, for being here. Appreciate your attendance. Next up, Ms. Kiefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have many comments, but I do want to just say, I feel like I say it every week that every time somebody comes to present to us what they're doing right now during this very difficult time and the teams around them and the outside the box thinking, it just personally gives me, and I know this board, a lot of pride in the work that's getting done in this division. And I just will stand by anything that's needed. I know, Mr. Flugrath, you're on the phone. You've heard it from all of us. And that will continue beyond even just you getting through graduation. You poor thing. I bet you didn't sign up for this one, right? I also, too, will just say, go support your local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. And now let that be the last note. So with that, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Kiefer, second by Mr. DeMaria that we adjourn. Roll call vote, please, Mrs. Garza. Aye.
Aye.
DeMaria.
Aye.
Mr. Albrecht.
Aye.
Seaver.
Aye.
Mrs. Williams. Aye. Mrs. Stevens.
Aye.
Ayes have it 7-0. The motion to adjourn passes and we are adjourned. Thank you so much for your time tonight, for all of you on the call, for the staff who stayed with us. We appreciate it and have a wonderful evening.